spot. Yeah, exactly. So the idea is to do everything within the shipping container. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll be starting. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being there. My name is Maeva, and I'm a second-year student in urban planning.
Hi, I'm Sara, and I'm a fifth-year mechanical engineering student.
Hi, I'm Adriana, and I'm a third-year PhD student in electrical and computer engineering.
Hi, I'm Wanda, and I'm a fourth-year student in business technology management. And before we start talking about plastic, we'll tell you a bit more about our mission. So our mission is to take our university's plastic waste and turn it into items that can be used by the Concordia community. And for our pilot year, we would actually like to be making 3D printing filament to be used on campus. We're not really trying to reinvent the wheel. Our project is based on the Precious Plastic open source methodology and is also in alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. As this is going through your head, you might be wondering, where are we going to be doing this? I mean, if you're a Concordia student, you know how difficult it is to book a space at Concordia. And for this reason, we decided to renovate an old shipping container to place our machinery inside. So this is a small rendering done of the space, where we'll place all of the machinery needed to do the repurposing, as well as have an area that our team members can have meetings and explore different research aspects of plastic repurposing. So we would like to also start by taking you back to 1869. This was the year where the first plastic was invented. It wasn't completely synthetic, so it utilized cotton fiber and camphor. And the motivation for John Hyatt to create this material was because a New York company was offering $10,000 to anyone who could create a material that would substitute ivory. So ivory is the material that comes from elephants. I don't know the name in English, but it's the big things the elephant have. And there was a shortage in that material since it had to be imported from outside of the US. So what Hyatt actually did was he triggered a domino effect to create what we have known as plastic today. It wasn't until 1906 that Leo Baekeland created the first fully synthetic material. This material completely revolutionized the way that humans treat and relate with materials. It was a great sense of independence. Humans were no longer dependent on animals or plants. It was now able to create a material completely made out of fossil fuel, that it was faster to produce and cheaper than cellulose. And that's when we started the age of plastics. So the material was patented in 1906, and it became massively adopted during World War II, where it was used to create anything from using nylon for parachutes to automobile parts, radio parts, airplanes, helmet liners, you call it. When the war ended, since most of the plastic production was going towards facilitating and creating war items, there was a need in the market to apply this material. And we really mean that it was used for anything. So the material that Leo Baekeland created was thermoset, meaning that the plastic could be exposed to heat and solvents and it would not degrade. So it was a new way of exploring how to store food, having the food be preserved for longer, as well as create items that could be used in everyday life. This ranging from vehicle parts all the way to the very creepy red Santa Claus that we see over there. And it was then that plastics became a pillar of modern day society. So Maeva is gonna walk us through now what actually are plastics.
So I will now introduce you to Plastics 101. So what are plastics? In total, there are 7 different types of plastic. So we'll start with number 1, which is polyethylene terephthalate, or referred to as PETE or PET. They make up 96% of all plastic containers and bottles, yet only 25% are actually recycled. So we find this type of plastic in bottles, microwavable food trays, and salad dressing bottles. Here at number 2, we have high-density polyethylene, or HDPE. It is the most commonly recycled plastic because it will not break under exposure to heat or cold, and this type of plastic is found in household cleaner bottles and shampoo bottles. At number 3, we have polyvinyl chloride, or PVC, and generally less than 1% of PVC plastic is recycled each year. So this type of plastic contains numerous toxins, which is harmful for both humanity and the environment. And we find them in clear food packaging, mouthwash bottles, and cooking oil bottles. At number 4, we have low-density polyethylene, or LDPE. This plastic is used in shopping bags, clothing, and furniture, and overall their packaging and containers make up 56% of all plastic waste, and 75% actually comes from households. At number 5, we have polypropylene, or PP, and only a small fraction is actually recycled, which is 3%, and it is quite low. We use them in ketchup bottles, medicine bottles, and syrup bottles. At number 6, we have polystyrene, or styrofoam, or known by its abbreviation PS. And this type of material breaks easily, which endangers numerous marine animals as it litters beaches and oceans, and it accounts for 35% of landfill materials. And this type of plastic has chemicals which are linked to human carcinogen and reproductive system dysfunction. And we see them in disposable cups and plates, takeout containers, and egg cartons. And last but not least, we have number 7, which is the others category, and it encompasses polycarbonate, BPA, and more. So this category includes other types of plastic, hence the name others, and many BPA products fall into this and are known to be difficult to break down. In addition, BPA leaks chemicals and is known to be an endocrine disruptor. In other words, they're nearly impossible to recycle and are super toxic. We can find them in 3 and 5 gallon water jugs, nylon, and some food containers. So here at this slide, we can see that each type of plastic contains an identification number, which indicates the types of plastic and which type that can be recycled. So the numbers range from 1 to 7, and as mentioned before, it is meant to indicate what they are and if they're recyclable. So for starters, plastics with the numbers 1 and 2 are considered to be recyclable, which are PETE and HDPE plastic respectively, while number 3 to 7 are considered to be non-recyclable and non-reusable, which are PVC, PP, PS, and others. However, there are exceptions to this rule, which is number 4 and 5, LDPE and PP respectively, and both are considered safe for reuse, but are not recyclable. An interesting fact though about number 5, which is PP, is that polypropylene is actually recyclable. However, many recyclers still don't accept it. And as you have may noticed, there are some plastics that do not contain an identification number, and unfortunately, plastics with no identification must be thrown in the garbage with other recyclable waste. The issue with unmarked plastic is that there is no way to know what plastics were used to produce them, so the Materials Recovery Facility, or MRF, won't know how to process the plastic for reuse. The only way to know would be to ask either the manufacturer or have the plastic tested. The same issues exist with plastics labeled number 7, since this category is made up with one single type of plastic or a mix of plastics. So in the next section, I'll be talking about the recycling process. So in general, recycling refers to the process of recovering waste or scrap plastic, then converting it into functional and useful products. So in more simple terms, the process includes collecting, sorting, shredding, washing, melting, and pelletizing. However, the procedure does depend on the type of plastic that is being treated. So most plastic recycling facilities use a 2-step process. So they start with sorting plastics to make sure that no contaminants remain in the plastic waste stream, and it's followed by melting plastics into a new shape or shredding them into flakes to be melted and processed into granulates. A little keynote here is that recycling does vary from city to city, so they can determine from what you can recycle to where you leave your recycling bins. And although there are latest advances in plastic recycling, the industry is still facing numerous challenges, and I'll and name a few. So the first one would be lack of knowledge. There's still confusion in relation to recycling, especially what can be recycled and what cannot be recycled. Unfortunately, some plastics that are recyclable accidentally end up in the wrong bin and end up being incinerated. A second challenge would be design for recycling, more precisely the issues concerning sorting. The sorting of mixed plastic is the biggest challenge facing the recycling industry. And despite having 7 types of plastics, according to the resin identification code, there are thousands of plastic combinations. And as you may know, plastic is a composite material, which means that it contains more than one type of raw material, therefore making recycling and sorting more difficult. So this often leads to plastics being incinerated, which would be a waste of valuable resources. And finally, our last challenge here is pigmented plastic. There are numerous issues with black plastic or colored plastics in general. The reality is that more than half of black plastic doesn't end up being recycled despite being labeled as recyclable. So it cannot be recognized by optical sorting systems, which means that they head straight to landfill. And packaging is usually colored using carbon black pigments, making it undetectable as it reflects little to no light. So as we learned just now, plastics are a source of danger for both humanity and the environment, but I will pass the lead to Sara, who will elaborate on the environmental impacts.
So as Maeva mentioned, there are many different types of plastics, and they are all very stable and therefore stay in the environment for a long period of time after they're discarded, especially if they're shielded from direct sunlight by being buried in landfills. So there's a growing concern about plastic pollution because it poses both a physical and chemical threat to wildlife and marine ecosystems. Plastic at the ocean surface level continuously release methane and other greenhouse gases, and these emissions increase as the plastic breaks down. They also interfere with the ocean's capability to absorb carbon dioxide, which is the role of many microscopic plants such as plankton, where some say that about 90% of the plastics in marine environments become microplastics, which is just fragments of plastics and available to a wide range of animals in the aquatic food chain to eat, which just results in us eating the microplastic as well. So plastics have a very big carbon footprint, and so do many of the alternatives to plastic. And that's what makes replacing plastic or recycling plastic such a big problem without a clear solution. So it is a form of fossil fuel. So your plastic water bottles, your grocery bags, your foam trays, they are all made from natural gases and oil. And it takes a lot of energies to make this happen. About 8% of the world's oil production goes to manufacturing plastics. If the production and disposal and incineration of plastics continue on their current trajectory, by 2050, we will have emitted the same amount of CO2 per year that 615 coal plants emit, which is a lot. To give you an idea of what's happening in Canada, Canadians produce a lot of plastic waste, an estimate of 3.3 million tons per year. Of that, most of it ends up in Canadian landfills, equivalent to 24 CN towers. According to the Canadian government, Canadians use almost 15 billion plastic bags per year and close to 57 million straws per day. About 86% of Canadian plastics end up in landfill, while only a mere 9% are recycled. The rest is burned to create energy, which causes its own issues with emissions, or is being littered in different ecosystems, or being sent overseas to other countries to pollute their lands. So Adriana will now tell you some actions you can take yourselves.
So as Sarah just told us, only 9% of plastic actually gets recycled. However, if you do have some plastic waste and you're not sure what to do with it, you can look at the number identifying the type of plastic and then look up your local recycling plant or recycling regulations and see what you can do with it. So in Montreal, all types are accepted except for number 6. So polystyrene is not accepted for recycling in Montreal. And another thing that you can do to increase the chance of your waste being recycled is to wash it and rinse it very well. Make sure it's clean before placing it in the bin. But again, since the vast majority of plastic waste isn't actually recycled, the best way to reduce plastic pollution is to reduce the waste at the source. and reuse any plastic that's currently in use. So some ways that we can reduce plastic waste. If you're using some of these materials, there are some very simple swaps that you can take. So here are some examples. One of them is cling film. So if you're having leftovers from dinner and you put some saran wrap on top of it, instead you could use beeswax wraps, or you can just use reusable containers. And then also post-COVID, when we're going to be out and about again, we can carry reusable water bottles, produce bags, and reusable coffee cups. So instead of, being thirsty while you're out and about buying a water bottle, you can just have one that's already full with water and refill it as you go. And there are also reusable straws that you can buy. So these are just some very basic examples, but one method you can do to reduce your plastic waste is you could do a waste audit. So you can see like what types of plastic are you throwing away most frequently, and then you can do a quick Google search to see some alternatives that you can use. Yes, and there are also many stores, actually, if you're in Montreal, there are lots of stores that sell plastic-free products and groceries. So you can bring your jars and fill them up with bulk groceries like nuts, seeds, rice, beans, stuff like that. So here's a list of some stores that you could check out. You can also, there's a bike delivery service. So if you don't live near any of these types of stores, you can order online and a guy will come on his bike and he will transfer the contents of one container into your container. So it's all completely zero waste. It's called Vrac sur Route, pardon my terrible French accent. And another idea is to go to the farmers markets. You can easily find plastic-free produce there. Just make sure that you don't let them put it into a plastic bag. So for example, if I go to the market and ask for some apples, they sometimes start like putting it into a plastic bag. So you just have to make sure to ask for no bag. So yeah, those are just some simple ideas for what you can do. And last but not least, you can join CP3 to help fight the plastic crisis, and Sarah will talk about that a little bit more.
Yay. So thank you. We're done with the Plastic 101s parts. We'll talk a little bit now about how you can join our team. So we're currently open for recruitment and we're looking for multiple positions, and you can check out our website or else check us out on Facebook or social media and you'll find the links there as well. So this will just ask you a couple questions for us to get some of your information and the positions you're interested in. You can pick more than one by all means, and then we'll reach out to you in a couple of weeks and kind of get a feel of what projects you'd like to join on and set you up with your mentor. So this is a good time to tell you a little bit of how our group of students kind of work. We have four general coordinators, and we work on a mentorship skill basis. So either you're coming in with a skill you would like to share with other students, or you're coming in trying to learn a completely new skill or trying to fine tune a skill that you've been learning for a while. So either work for us. You definitely don't need to have any experience. You don't have to have any experience for any of the, I guess, tasks or posts or positions, that you are asking for or trying to be recruited for. We are definitely here to help you, as well as we're all students here. So we're all here to help each other.